This is why we have to have models. We have to have some other representation of being able to show someone exactly where things are going to be. Hi, I'm Stephen Kemp. I'm a model builder. A model is one of our main communication tools to everyone who's going to be interested to knowing about the design, and especially to the director, being the number one person we want to show this tool to. And so it can be anything from a small visual representation of what this 2D sketch is going to look like in 3D space. And it can go all the way from that all the way to a fully polished, museum quality, beautiful color model. The idea is just how best to show these people what our design is going to look like on stage. I've been building models since I was 7 years old, doing military models, planes, ships, tanks, all of those kind of things. And I had always just really enjoyed that detail, the level of detail, and creating dioramas and creating life in miniature. And so when realizing that there was this job in set design that incorporates model building, I was very excited. Being in theater in high school, I was doing a lot of the set construction, and my teachers got me into doing some model building for some of the sets and getting into the design, and that got me excited. And then in undergrad, I had a great program where I was able to get a little more hands-on, and my taking that into working at the La Jolla Playhouse as a resident assistant, and meeting David Gallo and having him look at my models and look at my designs, and then be able to bring me in to work for him for all of his productions. With David, he gives me some rough sketches and of varying degrees. A lot of times he'll give me an exploded view of something that almost you can take and fold right up, and all of a sudden you've got a model in front of you. And a lot of other times you get some sketches that you then we polish up, we start putting it into the computer, we start photoshopping things, and and kind of taking that design and kind of making it more of what's really in his head. Working with him as much as I do, I know what he's going for, and so then I can kind of finish off exactly what he's trying to create, and then we can get that into the model. This is a good example of just a simple white model, and this is actually a combination of just taking the drafting, the original sketches that David produces, and then just kind of extruding that into 3 dimensions. This is an example of one of the other drops in the scene, the lemur village, of another drop in the show. And so this is a sketch that Dave created for this drop, and then we'll take it and then we have these paint elevations, and this is actually going to stay in the model here for the white model, but we have the color paint elevation that will eventually be handed off to the shop for what this will end up actually looking like in the show. A lot of times at the meetings, the model is a very important piece of the meeting, of the design. It becomes kind of the focal point of the communication, of showing people, here is where we're heading. This is what we're looking to do, and here it is in this perfectly scaled environment, so that we know that this is how it will look on stage if we continue on course. So we've got our 1/4-inch model of Memphis here, which was actually created later in the process, which is kind of unique. It was more of just there for us for staging. As you see, it still has a ground plan printed on the floor, so we weren't trying to represent the actual floor finish that we would have. But this is fully rigged to show our spinning columns and our tracking walls. So the technology of our the actual production is shown here in scale, trying to show exactly how this would work so we can configure all of the scenes. I find one of the most exciting things about model building and theater in general is that you never know where you're going to go with the set and the different materials that can be used. And in theater, I think a very important thing with model making is just how resourceful are you? How do you see, this bead, and how do you make that into this stair rail? Being able to take everyday items that we're seeing and see them in scale, and the simplest thing can make it into the model, and with a little bit of paint, it becomes something completely different and becomes very fun in that sense. Yeah, being that a model is a communication tool, there is always, depending on the complexity of the design, there's definitely a huge component of it, of of how do you present these different scenes. For a 3D physical model to be able to get your hands in and move things around, and in a meeting be able to like tear a wall out and just say like, no, we're gonna move this over here. You know, being able to really craft the space in that way usually helps people visualize much more of what's going to end up on stage. And that can be done in the computer now as well, which we're getting into, being able to spin someone around a 3D environment and walk them through, or send them videos of someone walking through a space. It's still, I think, very new in the theatrical world. It's obviously not new in selling people in the commercial world and in architecture, but for us, I think it has so much value in the speed at which we can do it, and the accuracy of it, and being able to really see from each seat what is going to be on stage. Showing, you know, a Broadway set in full motion is extremely difficult to rig up in a model. You know, it always makes meetings go on 3 hours longer than they need to as you're setting up the 20 scenes. Whereas if you can just press a button and you can go through all of these different scene changes much more easily in this computer program. Just the range of different shows that David gets to do is so much fun, being able to continually change the style of everything that you're working on. Coming from a similar background and being a set designer myself as well, and you know the process, you know how it's getting on stage, so you're taking his vision and you're realizing this work on stage. So I'm taking all of my knowledge and my design sensibility and layering that into his vision and getting that out there. I try to be as malleable as possible. I try to, you know, to take on their design sensibility, their aesthetic. You know, obviously you're creating their vision. So as an associate designer, you are going to be taking their ideas and you're continuing as what they are trying to get on stage.